Can I get a motion to accept the June meeting minutes as reported? Moved by Andrea, second by Dick. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. We have one presentation for today. Kristie with Alta Planning Design Incorporated. Kristie, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for having me. I'm Kristie Di Cocco, Alta Planning and Design. I'm here to talk about the Lewis County Rail Trail Master Plan. I'm just going to kind of walk through our team and experience, review our approach briefly, and then we can go through questions and answers as you have them. So, as I mentioned, I'm Kristie. I'm a principal with Alta Planning Design. We are a national active transportation firm. We were started in the mid-1990s, before active transportation was a thing and before it was cool. This is basically what we do is we focus on pedestrians and bicyclists. Trails and greenways is a huge component of our business. It's something that we all personally feel connected to. We are a very mission-driven company, and so. That's one of the reasons that we responded to this RFP is because it's something personally that I love to do is connect people to the places that they ordinarily wouldn't be able to connect to. For our team, we have EDR, Environmental Design Research. They are on our team for environmental services, public engagement, and we work with them a lot. Our styles of producing documents and materials are very similar, and so we have, we are going to be complementing one another throughout the process. And we really see them as an extension of ourselves. They also are local to the community. The project manager on the EDR side is in Watertown, and so she brings a wealth of experience, former DOT employee and a landscape architect. H&T Engineering is a structural engineering firm. The owners of that firm, I worked with them for over a decade side by side. They have over 45 years of experience in structural engineering. They have a tremendous amount of railroad structures experience, which is super important for a rail trail project like this, where the bridges are primarily railroad type, not necessarily highway. So there are some big differences there. And then Albertine Courier, who is our sub-consultant for survey services, should we want to engage them at any time. So just a little bit about me and the project management style that I have. At least for this project, I really think that there's three things that are super important. It's effective communication, so that means frequent communication, open, honest. I can't stress it enough. I stress it with my teams all the time. If we're not talking, then we got a bigger problem. So talking and communicating, whether it's in written or verbal form, is super important. Informed data processing. You all have a lot of decisions to make in front of you on any given day. And without having the data that you need in order to make informed decisions, it's kind of like flying without having eyes. It's really important to be able to know exactly what you're dealing with, to be able to make decisions that are based in data and based in sound judgment. Active listening and problem solving. I feel like all I am is a problem solver. That's what I do every day with my kids, my house, my job. It's like every day I walk in and I got another problem. But the key piece of that is active listening. And so when we talk about this project in particular, public engagement is a huge component of this. It will be a critical piece to making sure that whatever comes out of the Rail Trail Master Plan really reflects what the community's needs and desires are, and it mitigates any concerns there are, and it also capitalizes on the opportunities that may not be apparent right now, but as we get through the process, they start to reveal themselves. Project phasing is another critical component that we're super focused on, primarily because it comes down to the money. If the phasing isn't right, then the projects won't be appropriately sized for grant opportunities. It will be really difficult to implement the project long-term down the road. Year-round benefits. You all are in a very unique location where you've got a nice amount of snow, you've got water, you've got green, lush landscapes. Capitalizing on that also means getting opportunities for additional interest and excitement around the trail, and also additional year-round influx of opportunities for people to use it and to benefit from it. So really making sure that those year-round benefits are capitalized on will help even with the funding piece. And that's why funding is at the end, because without any of the money and having an implementable plan, it'll be really difficult to bring something to fruition. So when we talk about public engagement, I can't stress enough how critical it is for success. We have a variety of tools that we would like to be using throughout this project: pop-up events, steering committee events, interactive workshops, you name it. And because this rail trail is so long and the land use context around the rail trail is so varied, it's not a one-size-all approach for dealing and working with the public. We also really want to make sure that we understand and provide an avenue for everyone's voice to be heard. That can be really challenging in traditional, like, open house settings, where people come in and maybe you get one person that is really vocal but may not be expressing the opinions of the majority of the group. So through this engagement process, we really want to be able to gather information that helps steer the master plan in a direction that reflects the desires of the community. This is just an example of one of the tools that we could use. It's a traveling idea board, especially when we have meetings that are going to be throughout locations all along the rail trail. That board can be brought along, ideas added to it. The people that are now seeing the idea board for the first time can see all the ideas and concerns and excitement and opportunities presented or written down from prior times. So this may be something that we implement across the board. This picture is actually on these placemats that I brought for all of you. This is Semiscott Orchards in Kinderhook, New York. It's right along the Albany Hudson Electric Trail, which you can see the asphalt paved path in the background. We envision having similar experiences here, which we've had all across the country, but I bring this example to you all because this is unique. Their operations are focused on vegetables and fruit harvesting, but they also have a really robust pick-your-own operation where the public is involved. So it's not only dealing with the operations of the business itself, but then it's dealing with all of the visitors that come to capitalize on these pick-your-own events. So our trail solutions here had to be different than the farm down the road, who was really focused on cattle grazing and dairy production and didn't have the public involved at all. You know, there was nobody coming from the outside in. So we've been through this before. We understand that there's going to be concerns even about crossing between one farm and another. So that public engagement piece is going to be super critical to make sure that we fully understand what the issues exactly are and the best approach to mitigate any of those concerns. The other piece that we will get out of the public engagement is the trail elements. And the elements are really what make a difference between a trail and a trail experience. A trail can be linear from A to B, yes, that's a trail. But the trail experience changes it from being just, okay, I'm going to get on and I'm going to travel 3 miles and then I'm going to get off, to, oh my goodness, here is this thing, an interpretive panel that tells me a little bit about it. Or the color coding of the branding. On the lower right picture, that's CD Link. They use colors to tell you the direction that you're traveling. One color is for northbound, another color is southbound. It may seem like a minute detail, but that tiny little detail will make a huge difference. The Rail Trail Master Plan will focus on bringing out some of those elements to make sure that from all the way in Lowellville to Carthage, the experience is the same throughout. It doesn't matter where you get on or get off, you know that you're on the Lewis County Rail Trail. Sorry about that. Prior to, one of the things that we will use when we talk about phasing and constructability, we will use a variety of desktop resources for our analysis and also in-field services. We have planned to do a decent amount of field inspection, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But beforehand, we know that the green infrastructure was an element that there was some interest from the county on that, so we did some desktop review to understand where those opportunities may present themselves. We also classified all of the intersections. We looked at all of the crossings and classified them for high complexity, medium, and low complexity. That tells us what are we dealing with? Who do we need to coordinate with to understand what these crossings may look like? And what is that typology as you go through the intersection? Are they going to be more of an urban style, or is it going to just be a crossing with pavement markings? This is the southern section that's already built. We have taken a look at this section. We know kind of what you're starting from, and then the master plan will be able to build on that. Looking at the northern section, it's a little bit more complex. There are 15 bridges and culverts. When I say bridges and culverts, it's anything that's crossing some form of water or some airspace. Just doing the desktop review isn't enough, because when we look at them, we're seeing, yes, this traverses a space and time, but it doesn't tell us what the condition of that element is. So we do have time to go in the field and take a look at those things. There are 24 intersections, 6 of them are complex. And when we say complex, it's most likely due to the skew of how the trail crosses the existing roadway. So we will be taking a look at all of these elements in greater detail. These are just some kind of pictures just to kind of illustrate what we're dealing with, which I know you all know, but some of these crossings are pretty skewed.
Hey, Kristie.
Yeah.
Maybe we can switch mics here.
Oh, is it getting a lot of feedback?
So just move it back. If
Okay.
everyone can hear fine without it, that's
Okay.
fine. I don't know why it's feeding back so much.
That's
Well,
okay,
that
sorry.
doesn't matter.
I talk kind of loud too. So.
Okay, yeah.
So when we talk about the structures, I mentioned to you that we identified a minimum of 22. There may be more out there that we can't see from aerial imagery. The importance of the structures is that 9 times out of 10, they're at the beginning of or shortly thereafter of an access point. So if the structure is in not good condition, what that means for you all is that you have to deal with it sooner rather than later in order to build the next segment of trail behind it. When we're looking for data, when we're going to do the data collection, the things that we're looking for is the structural repairs, what is needed to bring it up to be able to handle the loading that we know we need to get, and then also how does that affect construction phasing and constructability. The structural repairs could be anything from on the superstructure, so that's the steel above it, could also be railings, could be the substructure, which is the abutments, the integral abutments or the piers, and then below that is the hydraulic and scour concerns. We will be looking to understand, are any one of these three things in disrepair, and how far in disrepair are they, because that ultimately comes down to money. How much money is it going to take to be able to fix these? And then again, I mentioned the constructability and phasing. We have identified access points already, but you know, there's more information that needs to be gathered to really have a true picture of what segments can be built at what time. And when we talk about the rail trail master plan, really what we're talking about pulling together is a document that really showcases how this becomes more than just a trail. It becomes an economic driver. These pictures that you're seeing of Swamp Rabbit, it's an awful name, but they love it apparently. They have, you know, all kinds of events that surround this trail, and it really has become an economic driver within the community. Maybe there's some feedback from the laptop. I don't know. We know that you all have gone through some logo and branding development before. That is up to you whether you want to engage in that process or not. But really, again, it comes down to this vision of having a facility that becomes a staple in the community and can provide health benefits for recreation and activity, but also bring in businesses that want to be located around the rail trail. These are just some examples of health benefit, economic benefit analyses that we've done in the past. We have tons of examples all across the country where the economic benefits are really clear. People want to move near rail trails for the benefits that they provide, both in property value and for health and recreation. And again, just wrapping up about the funding, there's a lot of funding opportunities out there. Never has there been this much funding available for active transportation before. When you couple that with green infrastructure, this project is really ripe for getting a variety of grant sources, but you need to show some movement and you need to show something that's buildable and implementable. And so that's where the Rail Trail Master Plan comes in. We're not building anything within Rail Trail Master Plan, you're just setting the framework for what could that look like in the future to go and get that funding as the county feels ready and prepared to do so. And just finally, I'll leave you with this. This is the Neenah paper plant, an employer in the area. This is not an example of what Neenah will be someday, but it's an example of thinking about the future and what could be. You know, this is an opportunity to gather everyone. You get out of work at the end of the day and you go and you have a drink with your friends, you meet your partner or your spouse, your kids, and you go for a bike ride, or you go just for a short walk. It doesn't even have to be that long. But it's really about a vision of community and gathering to be able to come together and have a space that is safe and fun and enjoyable, that everybody can really enjoy throughout the county. We talk about year-round benefit. Again, the more opportunities you can get for users on the trail, the more money it brings in, the more excitement you get, and it kind of just builds from there. So with that, I think I'm a little over, but that's kind of the short version of how we envision the rail trail master plan from the Alta perspective.
You said there was 22 structures.
Yes.
What are those structures? Are they all bridges, or are they?
There's
what
a
are
variety. So they could be large culverts. Large culverts are defined as anything over a certain span length with concrete head walls on them. It's really hard to tell from the aerial imagery exactly what they are, but it's clear that there's some water passing through them. If it's just a culvert, no big deal, right? Maybe the culvert's in good condition and it's not an issue. But if they are short span structures and the timber decking is failing, or the rails have put excess strain on the head walls, then it's no longer simple, because now you're dealing with what are those repairs going to be.
Do you have an open mind as to what uses could be?
Absolutely, yes. And here's the reason why. In Lowellville, where things are a little bit more populated, there's actually those two tracks that kind of run side by side. This image doesn't really share it that well, but in that southern section, you may want to have one piece be completely non-motorized, just straight up stone dust, walking and biking. And then on the separate track, or the separate piece of right-of-way, you may want to keep the rails in place and do like a biking, they have that up near Warrensburg, where the bikes are on the rails themselves. You could change it and make it be exclusively concrete. There's a wide variety of opportunities. It really just comes down to what makes the most sense.
Will your team actually walk the trails?
Yes. So that's, and there's a lot of distance to cover. So one of the things that we were hoping to do is to use either UTVs or ATVs so we can make up faster ground. But that's up to the county if we're going to be allowed to be on the parcels to do that. If we can't use the ATVs to get from, throughout the segments, what we'll probably do is divide and conquer. We'll walk in, we'll take our bikes if we can. It really depends on the conditions of the bridges. If we can get over the bridges, then we'll take our bikes and we'll ride as far as we can. We do have the ability to use drones if we need to, but we prefer not to use them because there's no substitute for your eyes,
right.
Essentially.
So, in your study of this, there might be, when you really look at what's out there might be situations where walking is the only alternative.
That's correct, yeah.
And motorized is a great alternative.
That's correct, yep.
But not one size fits all.
Yeah, yeah.
What's the last one you guys worked on?
I'm working currently on the Sullivan O&W Rail Trail in Sullivan County. Some of our teammates are working on the Atlanta Beltline. I've briefly worked on it. Can't really say that it's mine, but that's down in Atlanta. That's a beltline that goes all around the city of Atlanta. I have the Parkland Trail, which I'm currently working on. Just submitted 90% Friday night, way too late. That's in Washington, the state, Parkland, Washington. So we have several across the country that we're working on. Empire State Trail, 750 miles. I finished that in 2020. The Kingston Rail Trail, we worked on that in 2018. So we have too many today.
Aren't you also working, or did you just recently finish the one in the Adirondack?
Yeah, so the Adirondack Rail Trail, I did that with my former company. So that design was mine, and then I left and I went to the Thruway Authority. So I had to give it up. I don't work for that company anymore. But yes, that's when I was a project engineer, so the design was mine. I was not a project engineer.
What would be your timeline?
The RFP calls for a year. It's aggressive. The public engagement piece is really important, and it's going to drive a lot of this. The farming community, our thought is that reaching out to them would be best in winter months outside the harvest. But we're planning, our schedule right now is to go through the full year.
what kind of success have you had with grant writing? I know you mentioned the amount of money that's available.
Yes,
out there.
so our company alone, not including our sub-consultants, we have gathered over $845 million in funding for communities that have solicited our service, our grant writing services. We have a dedicated team for grant writing. We actually just won the Augusta Rail Trail when I was here last time, and we mentioned that. They actually got 2 federal grants, which we confirmed that that wasn't a mistake. It kind of was a mistake, but then the feds said, okay, well, we're going to let it slide. They got $45 million for that Augusta Rail Trail in North Carolina.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's from a Braze grant, but we wrote those grants. I mean, that's one of the things that, you know, we've helped, like the Sullivan O&W, we've helped them write their grants. They've taken the ownership on to write it themselves. And they made it to the 3rd round this last time with the Raise grants. I think had we have written it, we probably would have gotten it a little bit further. But they are super competitive, so you've got to know the ins and outs, and because we do them all across the country and they're federal grants, I mean, we are uniquely positioned for that.
Why do you think there is so much money available? Like,
Well,
is it
Pete
kind of like
Buttigieg, I can't say his last name, our Secretary of Transportation is a big proponent of active transportation,
Okay.
so he's pushing. We also learned from the pandemic that recreation and access to outside resources is super important.
Mhm.
Being inside and sitting at a desk all day is, I mean, we have to do it for our jobs, but at the end of the day, people need a way to connect to nature. And so I think the pandemic really taught us a lot about our habits as individuals and our needs to be able to be living a healthier lifestyle. You know, the Sullivan O&W, and I know you all in Lewis County have some of the worst health statistics in New York State, and so part of building the momentum around this is that if you can get people living a more active lifestyle, that decreases your healthcare costs, which means it decreases your Social Security costs, and it kind of like filters out. And I think it's really about looking at the big picture.
Do you factor public safety into your
100%.
equations?
I am a woman with 3 young kids, and I can tell you that there are sections of trails I will not go on because I don't feel safe, because they were not designed with that in mind. And public safety doesn't only mean the user, but it also means, on the flip side, emergency services. How do they get to someone if they've fallen? How do they get to someone if, you know, they've run into an issue? And also, it's like graffiti. I hate to say it, but that's a real thing. Graffiti is a problem. We've had instances on the Empire State Trail of people tagging signs. Our signs, this is the logo for the Empire State Trail, but our signs have an anti-graffiti coating on it, so it's pretty simple that you go out there and you're able to wipe it off and clean it up relatively easily.
Well, the factor of getting emergency vehicles or people to it
Yes.
is what I was alluding to mainly.
Yeah, and it's super important. That's where the bridge is. So a lot of times people say, oh, I got a bridge. How much could a one person on a bike or walking take? No big deal. But it is a big deal because you've got to be able to get a one for construction so that you don't have to go 2 miles one way in and 2 miles out. Then the second part is when the trail is implemented, you need to be able to get a fire, well, not necessarily a fire truck, but an ambulance on there. So we always design our pedestrian bridges with HL 93 live loading, which is standard for a pedestrian bridge, and it accommodates the emergency service vehicles.
Is grant writing a separate issue with you, or is that part of the current package?
The current package does not include grant writing, but what it does include is the phasing the projects, like a project prioritization. So breaking down the full length of the trail into sizable chunks that the county could feel like they could take on in an order that makes the most sense for the grant funding opportunities. So does not include the actual writing itself, because the grants also change from year to year. Sometimes you can have a CFA application come out and it's right for a section that you have, and other times the solicitations come out and you don't have anything that really kind of matches the criteria that's on the table for that session, for that round.
I think you've been through this before.
Well, yes, but every situation is different. Your rail trail is not the same as the Sullivan O&W. It's not the same as the Beltline. It's not the same as CD Link. It has its own identity. And so, you know, yes, I've been through it before, but every time we go through this, it's like it's a new experience, and we're going to find new challenges, but we draw from all that experience to be able to kind of get through this in one piece. you know.
In this particular project, how many people would be involved in the team?
There's a lot. I mean, I'm the face. You will see me more than anything else, but on my own Alta team, I think I have 10 right now. That's behind me, you know,
Right.
doing a variety of things. On EDR's team, I think we have 5, HET has 4, roughly. I'm giving you rough numbers just based on the org charts and how we did our budget and things like that. So you're talking probably not all at one time, obviously. You know, we have specialty areas, like our planners on the Alta side will be involved early and upfront, and then there'll be a select few that continue throughout, but as we develop our 30% design package, then the engineers take over, and so it's like a team swap. You know, you're dealing with engineers versus the planners.
You mentioned the public outreach, which is obviously very important.
Yes.
How often do you visualize that?
Well, right now we have it planned. We will have some sort of public engagement activity throughout the duration of the project. There will be short bursts of time where we're preparing for, say, an open house or a steering committee meeting or a legislative meeting possibly. We also are scoped to do the town meetings, you know, for each of the towns that are involved. So, you know, I can't give you exactly, you know what, I do have my schedule here, but I don't know.
About is good enough.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think we're going to see a big burst in the beginning as we kick things off, because we need to know what are people's upfront hesitations or opportunities. Then we'll come back and we'll probably revisit those opportunities and share with everybody the progress that we've made. What are the existing conditions that we've identified, and how does that shape things? And then it's again like a third time at the end for, okay, now we've heard you, we've implemented some things, here's what we think the final product is. Did we get it right? And so that's the last.
So, in some form of a meeting, would you say monthly?
Yes, for sure. I mean, we are scoped to have monthly meetings with the county. That's our internal meetings. Those are progress meetings. I wouldn't necessarily consider that public engagement, but the county does have an obligation to be that two-way conduit to share information back. We also have stakeholder meetings, which are offset from our steering committee meetings. Like the stakeholder meetings are offset from our public engagement meetings. So you're going to have a touch point probably about once a month, at most once every 2 months, but I don't think it'll go that long. We don't have a lot of time. We have 12 months, so you know we got to move when it comes to connecting.
I like the fact that you would go to the towns as well.
Yes.
To the town meetings.
Well, because I think the towns, no offense to the county, but you are the county, and the towns have their own, may have their own opinion and ideas of what's important to them, which may or may not be in alignment with the county. I mean, that's just a fact of multi-tiered government. So it's important that they have an opportunity to speak out as a governmental agency. And also, we need to recognize that they may or may not take on responsibility for portions of the trail after it gets built. So it's on them to understand what is that commitment that they're also engaging in. Just because the county says it needs to be so, there's fiscal responsibilities that each municipality has that they have to face as well. So that's why, you know, that the town meetings are important for that.
My time is done.
Okay. Thank you for all your questions. I hope I didn't talk to you.
Any other questions from the committee members?
No, thanks for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. And I'm happy, you know, as you all, we depart today, if you have questions or thoughts or ideas, you know, my email is always open. You can always call. I'm happy to. I love this business. I love connecting people to what we have here in nature. So I'm happy to talk about it anytime.
Thank you very much, Kristie. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Thank you.